Hello everyone! The new Barbarian has dropped, and as we all know, the Barbarian in D&D has always served a very simple purpose in a party. He was a massive chunk of XP to protect the party and a absolute truckload when it came to damage. With its rage, it could add a good steady damage of +2 as long as he did damage or got damage himself. It also was resistant to general damage like bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing, which virtually doubled its HP pool. This was very useful, especially early game. The unarmored defense gave him a nice ST score, and the reckless attack could be used very strategically to get that one monster to 0 HP while taking a risk of getting a advantage on themselves. The primal paths were decent enough, though the one that stuck above and beyond was of course the path of the Totem Warrior, who granted resistance to all damage except psychic, as long as you were raging. Of course, this meant the Barbarian couldn't do much more than this, but what he did at, he was an absolute unit at it. Multiclassing was a good option for those who seek the variety, but a level 20 Barbarian was an absolute monster to handle. It did not really need this multiclass. The traditional multiclass, if we do speak about it, was usually with either a fighter or the so-called Barbarian, a mooncycle druid who turned into a bear and then raged to get half damage because he was also the totem of the bear, a Barbarian. Although I have seen it also done with Monk for a more dexterity barbarian, a barbarian was generally a strength character, which was usually the only strength character in the party and the only one who could actually open a heavy door to help those poor leg day skipping casters.
Fucking doors!
A good barbarian was fun to play with, and as a DM, it allows you to put up some higher CR creatures that hit a little bit harder. After all, the barbarian can tank it. If you wished to counter the barbarian or give it a good challenge, giving it a larger amount of creature, attacking it range was a good way to go, of trying to have him roll any save that wasn't a physical attribute, depending on which powerful barbarian you had against you. If your puppy did something like I don't know, talk during your monologue you just prepared last night at 2 a.m. Just dominate the barbarian and have him attack the party and enjoy the chaos being rained upon the party for once and not upon your poor little monsters. So, let's go over the new changes in this new edition. I will be ignoring the Weapon Master's feats and focus more on what will be unique to the barbarian himself, or herself, depending on what you preferred. The Weapon Master in itself already gives it a much needed variety to the Barbarian and some control depending on the weapon he chooses, so I hope that we can still see some nice changes to the playstyle. Okay, at first level for the general class, so we'll dive into the subclasses later. At general class, there are more options to maintain their rage. Now, if there's no enemy nearby, but you can force an enemy to make a saving throw, for example, a breath weapon, you can keep your rage going on, or you can burn your bonus action to keep it going on. This will probably cause the barbarian to be less scared to use its rage, as it's limited to 2, and it kind of course, sucked balls when you lost one use, if the combat didn't take long, or the enemy ran, or if, for example, there was a trap or some kind of effect that you were stuck with, for example, a hold person that was absolutely destroying your barbarian rage movement. This is a good improvement, especially since it can mean giving up a bonus action attack to keep it going on. So there's an element of weighing the pros and cons of the situation. At level 2, there is the danger sense, which was in very much need of a upgrade, as many surprise attacks were from hiding or stealth or for abilities that made the characters invisible as long as they didn't move. So this change is very welcome. You can also have this sense on for as long as you're not incapacitated. So this means that even if your attention is somewhere else, if something attacks you from behind, you can still sense it. A new feature, or a new remade feature, is the primal knowledge. While you rage, you can make some ability checks with your strength instead of the normal one. I would say this is amazing for the intimidate, especially since you gain a skill proficiency, so this intimidate is just up for the grabs. Although I have no idea what abilities exactly, as they just said some abilities. But this, they mentioned that this was the plan so that the barbarian isn't stuck just for combat. But I still doubt that many would just use up a rage out of combat, unless it's very useful for a very important intimidate or to escape traps. But it's a very good evolution to the rage that we wanted for a while. At level 7, you get a pounce. You can jump at any direction. A great jumping barbarian, I don't know how useful it will be unless you're running from a collapsing bridge. I've rarely seen jumping being used a lot in campaigns. Though, of course, if you have the feat, you might use it more. It is a feat at level 7, so to me it feels a little bit late. At level 9, you get a very interesting feat. You get the Brutal Strike instead of the Brutal Crit. Brutal Crit was only on a crit, and of course, if you are a very unlucky barbarian, that even with your reckless, couldn't you still couldn't land a crit. Now you don't need to. You can forego the reckless instead of doing the advantage on the reckless attack. You can forego this. This does not mean that your enemy can no longer claim the advantage, but this means that instead of rolling the extra dice, you just go with the dice you have and you gain more damage on it. It means that, for example, if you then die as a barbarian orc, you'll get, for example, 2 hit dice from your relentless and 2 dice from the relentless as an orc. So that means 4 hit dice you can roll to gain more or not. But it wasn't mentioned more. All right, on to the subclasses. We see the top 3 used: the Path of the Berserker, the Wild Heart, aka the Totem, and the Zealot. The last one was a very, very good class from Tasha, and there's also a new class called Path of the World Tree. Okay, so let's get on with it. Path of the Berserker was the quintessential barbarian. More damage when you rage easier, and when you rage, nothing can come between you. You can't get frightened or charmed during your rage. It was a little bit boring to play, to be honest. I've never actually seen it at my table, but it is just the barbarian smash. Frenzy is now changed. It deals more damage per turn, and you are no longer getting the exhaustion. But of course, it will mean that you get the reckless attack on you if you use this frenzy. The Mindless Rage now doesn't just postpone, but actually stops a charm or a frightened. I think that this is a better wording for something that already happened. If you postpone a charm or a frightened, I think that this is a better wording for something that already happened. If you postpone a charm or a frightened, usually by the time you came out of your rage, the monster was dead, unless you were unlucky and you weren't able to attack. So if the monster was dead, there was no longer a need for to be mindless because it was dead, so there was no longer charm, no longer fright. I don't see much difference here. It's a better wording, but okay. You mean it could mean that you could, for example, rage to stop a whole person. It is interesting in that way, but like I said, it was already something they could do. They just ended. Berserker Retaliation is now at level 10. It's nice, but to be honest, if I would play a barbarian, I would much rather keep my reaction for something like a sentinel feat. It's nothing impressive, but it's good that they change it from 10 to 14, from 14 to 10, as it's something that needs a little bit easier of use. Intimidating Presence is now 14th, and it's now a number of creature in a radius of 30 feet and a bonus action to use. While this is very nice, level 14 is very late, and for me, a lot of the mob monsters are already a high level. You're not gonna put up level 1s that cannot get through the AC at level 14. And most bosses at those high levels or are just immune to frightened, and many of the creatures will also. So I don't see this being very interesting, to be honest. But if this is the bad side you need to have the Berserker Retaliation at level 10, it is a good trade-off. Now, this class, generally, the Berserker class was a very Hulk smash kind of class. It's still this. It's not very interesting, save for the new weapons master, and I think that will be what sets this class a little bit more apart. Okay, next up is the Path of the Wild Heart, the path formerly known as the Path of the Totem. There is now a chance to change some of the features every time you rage, and one feature will be fixed per long rest. This is amazing for versatility and for flexibility. There will also be a lot more options, and there will also be, for some reason, the names will not be similar. They will all be other animals, because apparently people could not used to take everywhere bear. Okay. Level 6, for example, there are a lot more options that are focused more on the adventuring aspect. For example, salmon is a swim speed, the panther is a climb speed, the owl is a dark vision. They did not really mention anything about the chains of the bear, so I'll assume it's just the same. This subclass is really amazing, and they kept it like that. I see this still being one of the favorites, and I can't wait for the barbarian to yell out, "I would like to rage, salmon style," and then proceed to punch a kraken with a salmon. Up to the new paths. The new path, part of the world tree, is one that is connected to the world tree. It is a very common trope in many fantasy settings, including D&D, and it's a class that will allow, at high level, the barbarian to teleport. Yikes. It will also give himself or other hit points. To my opinion, this leans a little bit too much into the paladin, and this is also more a tanky barbarian than a crusher barbarian. It also will gain some movement control and more reach with its weapon. This is a very nasty barbarian. One of the biggest problems with a barbarian was sometimes not getting to a enemy, and as a DM you could really exploit that, or sometimes not have thought something true, or have a character be moved and then the barbarian basically being running around trying to hit. And to be honest, being able to get where you need to hit the thing that you need to hit is very nice. I think this might be one of my favorite paths, and it's especially a very good addition to the barbarian. He'll hit a little bit less hard, but he will always get where he needs to be. Very good, very barbarian. Then you have the path of the zealot, and that is the barbarian that is connected to your favorite god, to his favorite god. Warrior of the God feature has also been changed into a pool of dice that you can heal, but only yourself, as to not lean too much again into the paladin. A bit of a selfish, a selfish zealot, as it were. This is quite good. A healing barbarian is a DM's nightmare, but it can be also very variable in fights. If the fight is not going well, instead of forcing the paladin, the cleric, or even the bards of the warlock of celestial to give up a healing moment for the barbarian can just do it himself, and then you can help the others in the party. Fanatical Focus now gives a reroll with a bonus. They mentioned that they want a lot of rerolls to actually have a bonus to make it count, which I think is very good, although they did not say what a bonus entails. I like having rerolls as a player, as a DM. Sometimes it can be a little bit more annoying, but as long as it's a reroll that you gain from yourself and not a reroll that you impose, I think there is no problem here. And it is, I think, also a very good evolution to the Fanatical Focus. At level 14, you gain Rage of the Gods. You do no longer activate it at level when you drop to HP 0. Instead, you activate it during your rage. Apparently, it makes you fly. A barbarian that flies, because if there's anything I need to know, it's a barbarian passing at me or over me with a loincloth, an angry axe, and an angry face. I think this is going to be a very scary barbarian. It also allows for a little bit more damage, and can also towards your party from dying. At a level 14, I think this is very nice. I think this is much better than what the Berserker gets. So I think the Zealot will be a lot more about, I am making sure I'm going to make sure you're dead because you dared insult my god. So this feels like a very petty barbarian. This is to me a very petty barbarian, and I think it's very good. Now let's conclude everything. I think there are 3 different playstyles here. You have the Berserker, which is damage focused. The Wild Heart is about versatility, adapting to situation, while the World Tree and the Zealots are about movement and survivability of themselves and their party. This is very interesting, and it will give the Barbarian a lot more options. Though I do not see personally why you would pick a Barbarian when you can teleport into your enemy's face, or let's face it, fly up to the monster, or maybe even teleport in its belly and attack it from the insides. All in all, if every class gets this kind of upgrade or this kind of evolution, I think this will be very good. I would personally play a part of the World Tree. I am not a big barbarian player, but it does make me want to play a very chunky orc beefcake barbarian. Now, this was it for today. I would say like, share, and subscribe. What do you think about these? Are you excited for this new rule? Please share on the comments below. Ramble on. Bye!